What's going on, guys? Craviator here. What's going on, guys? Craviator here. Today we will be doing a tuning guide. I just spent the last 50 minutes doing one, and didn't realize I was recording, so that sucked. So I'm gonna do this again. I think I was asked to do this. Oh well, I was asked to do this to give a guide on tuning on the Forza forums. So I'm gonna spend 50 minutes doing this, so I'm gonna try and cut that down a lot because I really don't want to repeat myself. So tire pressures, you want to have. I keep it at 30 and 30, which is stock. This basically front. Well, it doesn't matter what you do on the front and rear. If you have a flat tire in real life, then your car will be sluggish, it'll be non-responsive, it'll be out of control. But because the contact patch will be so increased, but the load of the car will be like basically forcing its way down on the flat tire, and it won't feel nice at all. So that's why I have it at 30 and 30 pressures all the time. It's like the optimum pressure range. You'll have a nice steady temperature range over the tires. But the temperature range doesn't really matter, and your tire wear doesn't really matter if you're running cosmetic damage anyway. The tire wear doesn't even exist if you have cosmetic damage. The higher the contact patch, the higher the pressure, then the higher the less friction you'll have between the tire and the road, which will mean you will have more optimum speed, you have more speed down a straightaway because there's less friction from tire to road because the pressure is higher up, so you're ballooning the tire basically. You can, so you go down Le Mans and you have really high balloon tires, you have super top end, but if you go through a corner you'll just be, oh jeez, I'm gone. I'm spinning out of control because there's no friction, there's no contact patch at all to give you that extra grip down a straightaway. It's like going around in a drag lane. You have really high pressures to have less friction as possible to go down a straight. But once you hit a corner, you are going to be toast. So anyway, I keep the pressures at 30 and 30 because there's no point changing it. So yeah, gearing is so versatile. You can change it for any track. It's so different. The only tip I can give you, if you have a 1.6 liter engine in it, and you have a sports transmission or a race transmission in it, drop the final drive all the way to the bottom. Then in a speed section, some like the good range is around 2.5 to 3. That's the range you want for that, because the gears will be taller, but the power range of that 1.6 liter engine, so from like low revs to 5,000 and a half revs at which you need to change gear will take longer to get, so you'll have so much more power going through. And yeah, so 2.5 to 3 if you have a sports gear, a gearbox, and a race gearbox in it. You want that for 1.6 liter engines. I'm not going to go into any more detail in gearing because it's so. You have a gearbox, so yeah, I'm not going to go into gearing on that one. Alignment, it's really simple. You don't have positive camber in a car. Negative camber's the go. It keeps the car stabilized the more you put in it. In previous games, 1 to 1.5 was the maximum you would put in a car. The minimum in Forza 5 is -2, and the maximum's around about, maximum I would say is probably about 3.5 to 4. I'd probably go around 3.5. So -2 on the -2 camber front and rear is the minimum you want for that. More negative camber you have, the more the turning you have basically, and such and that. Toe, you don't want any toe at all, because if you have one toe, you have ridiculous turning. Your tires will be like pow pow. I'm turning in. I'm turning in responsive now. But once you do that, if you put toe in your tire, you will lose so much speed down the straight, because the tires aren't staying straight. They're on an angle, and once they're on an angle, they're more prone to turn in than they are to going straight. And if they're more prone to turn in and not going down a straight, and if they're not straight, you will lose so much straight speed, and you will lose so much acceleration, because the tires aren't straight. And it's like dragging your ass across the carpet, and you'll just lose so much speed. So I always have it at 0 on front and rear. And caster, you can have it at 1 caster. It doesn't really matter until you're in a really fast, higher paced class. If you're in that, I would go from 5 to 7. I have it at 5 because I don't see any point, because it's an arcade game. The physics aren't that brilliant. I just keep it at 5, and that's it for the alignments. Roll bars, you have. I want to give you the range first. 10 to 25 is the range for rear wheel drive cars. You want 10 and 25. Front wheel drive and rear wheel drive, you want 1 on the front and 40 on the rear. You can. No, well, sorry. You got 1 and 10 on the front and 30 to 40 on the rear for roll bars. That is your range for all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive cars. Now you've got two main issues with roll bars. Well, with the car, which the roll bars fix. Does my car understeer? If it understeers, what you have to do is soften the front, stiffen the rear. Softening the front will let the car drop down on the load, increase the turn, and the tires will be more responsive. Stiffening the rear will be like having a really stiff axle and having the load pushed down on it, and it's doing completely nothing. It's not dropping. It's not squashing the axle down. And if it does that, then the tires will have less load, and it won't be any pressure pushing the car down. So that the tires will start sliding from side to side, and that's how you get turn-in, basically. Well, that's how I figure it. That's how I see it. So you want to soften the front, increase the rear on the roll bars. If you have understeer. Oversteer is the opposite effect. You want to stiffen up the front, because then the load will not be pushing it down, make the car less responsive, because you'll have the axle. You have the roll bar. I'll just say axle because I like the word axle. If you have a stiff axle on the front, the load is not pushing it down. It will make the car, instead of the rear making it all slidey, it will make the car it will slow down the car because it will be more rigid. So the tires will take a lot longer to turn in, basically. So if you have oversteer, stiffen up the front and soften the rear. Softening the rear will basically have that load pushing down on the rear tires to the point where the load of the car is pushing them down, and they won't be able to turn. So it's just giving that extra grip on the rear, basically. So the two problems are, if it's understeering, soften the front, stiffen the rear. If it's oversteering, stiffen the front, soften the rear. That's your two main objectives. The ranges are 10 to 25, front and rear for rear drive. For front wheel drive and all-wheel drive, you want 1 to 10 on the front and 30 to 40 on the rear. That's the ranges for that. Springs, same aspects as roll bars, basically. However, I normally drop the range I normally, from stock, on most cars, I drop it from around 100 to 150, or 50 to about 150 from stock, so I soften it. Softening the car will make the car more responsive, but if you soften it too much, it'll just start to make the car all sluggish, and the load will be pushing down too much, and it'll just feel horrible to drive. So keep it in around the stock area, but softening that a little bit will make the car a bit more responsive, but it will feel nice. Cars like the Transit van, the big Utes, I think it's Raptor, it's so much. The car weighs so much, and the springs can't handle it stock. So you have to stiffen it up, because the load. Well, for one, the Transit van has like, I think, 800 or 700 springs stock, and when it does that, when you get into third gear, and you're trying to power out of a corner, it goes like the load is pushing down the tire, and it doesn't sound good. It doesn't feel good. So if you stiffen the springs up, the weight of the car. The weight of the springs will push the load up on the weight from the weight of the car, and yeah, so basically, yeah, well, I'll just start. I'll just finish there and stop saying yeah. If you have the same problem the same two problems, it's the car understeering. Then soften the springs, stiffen the front. Soften the front springs, and then stiffen the rear springs. If my car is oversteering, stiffen the front springs, soften the rear springs. Same aspects as the anti-roll bars. You want to do that if you have those two. Now, ride heights. You want to have the lowest as possible without bottoming out. So the minimum, whatever the minimum. You want the best center of gravity, so drop the car down. Just keep dropping it and dropping it and dropping it. If the car starts to bottom out, increase it until it doesn't start